There's something uncanny about the way certain people enter our lives. It's not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes, it's subtle, almost imperceptible at first. A glance that lingers longer than expected. A conversation that flows too easily. And then, a realization. This person feels familiar, even though you've only just met. Carl Jung believed in what he called meaningful coincidences, synchronicities. Events that line up with such precision they feel orchestrated by something beyond randomness. And maybe, just maybe, the universe speaks through these moments. If destiny wants you to be with someone, it rarely yells. It whispers. It nudges. It repeats patterns. And if you're paying attention, you'll notice 4 signs that seem to show up again and again. Maybe you've already felt the first one. It's that inexplicable sense of recognition. You meet someone and it's like your soul remembers them. You don't know how or why, but the connection is immediate. There's a resonance, a familiarity, almost as if you've met them before in another life or another version of this one. You try to rationalize it away. Maybe you remind each other of someone else. Maybe it's just chemistry, but it doesn't go away. Carl Jung would describe this as the unconscious aligning with a deeper truth. It's the psyche reacting to a symbolic mirror. You're not just meeting them, you're seeing something of yourself reflected back. Something you didn't know was missing until that moment. And when that happens, things start aligning in your environment. The second sign is synchronicity. Those eerie little coincidences that seem too perfect to ignore. You're thinking about them and they text. You walk into a bookstore, and a book they once mentioned falls off the shelf in front of you. Songs they love start playing at random. Or maybe you both show up at the same place without planning it. Again and again. It's not just cute or curious. It feels orchestrated. These aren't random blips, they're patterns. Repetitive nudges. Jung believed synchronicities were a bridge between the inner world and the outer one, and when they start surrounding a particular person, it's as if the universe is saying, "Look here. Pay attention. This matters. And hey, if any of this resonates so far, this might be the exact kind of content your soul's been craving." So if you're into conversations about psychology, destiny, and the subtle patterns that shape our lives, make sure to subscribe. That way, you won't miss out on the next insight that might connect another piece of your personal puzzle. Now, as strange as it sounds, sometimes the third sign shows up in the form of disruption. It's not always peace and comfort when someone meant for you walks in. Sometimes, their presence shakes everything loose. Old wounds open up. Habits fall apart. Plans suddenly shift. You may start questioning everything, your job, your path, even your identity. That's because their role isn't just to accompany you, but to transform you. They challenge your comfort zone. Not because they're trying to hurt you, but because they activate parts of you that have been dormant. There's something about them that demands growth. And this disruption isn't chaos. It's alchemy. Jung said that we don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. If this person brings up your shadows, that could be exactly what your soul needs to evolve. And that's where the emotional intensity comes in, the fourth sign. It's not always romantic or even pleasant, but it's potent. The connection feels larger than life. You might find yourself thinking about them constantly, dreaming about them, sensing their energy even when they're not around. The bond feels spiritual, electric, maybe even a little obsessive. But that intensity has a purpose. It's there to wake you up. It's meant to break through your apathy, your numbness, the ways you've settled. It grabs your attention because it has to. Jung believed our unconscious speaks to us through emotions and symbols. So if someone evokes feelings that are unusually deep or complex, don't dismiss it. That could be your psyche pointing to something significant. Of course, it's easy to mistake intensity for compatibility. But this isn't about fairy tales or happy endings. It's about meaning. Sometimes the people we're destined to meet aren't meant to stay forever. They come into our lives like catalysts. They change us. They awaken something. And then sometimes they leave. But the impact remains. The lesson sticks. The soul remembers. And maybe that's the point. It's not always about building a life with them. It's about what their presence does to your life. Think about a moment when you felt deeply connected to someone, without knowing why. Was it just attraction? Or was something deeper at play? Did life feel like it was subtly rearranging itself around that connection? These are the questions that matter, not just to understand others, but to understand yourself. Carl Jung taught that every person we meet represents an archetype, a symbolic figure carrying some deeper meaning for our development. That's why some people pass through like a breeze, and others hit us like a storm. Because they're not just people, they're mirrors, triggers, guides. And in case you're just now joining this kind of exploration, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This isn't just content. It's a shared journey into the patterns and mysteries that make life feel magical. And your presence here adds something important to that journey. Now let's circle back to that feeling of familiarity, the soul's recognition. What's fascinating is how this shows up not just emotionally, but physically. Body language syncs, heart rates align. You finish each other's sentences. There's a harmony that doesn't need explanation. Science might call it limbic resonance. Jung would call it archetypal resonance. You're not just vibing, you're in a shared psychological field. That connection can create a feedback loop of emotional healing. When someone sees you without judgment, your nervous system relaxes. You start becoming more of who you are, not less. That's a sacred bond, not because it's perfect, but because it's honest, real, raw. Sometimes this person shows up right after a major life shift. Losing a job, ending a relationship, moving cities. That's not a coincidence. It's like the universe clears space before placing someone significant in your path. And when they show up, it's not about what they look like or what they do. It's how you feel around them. Grounded, seen, challenged, expanded. These are not just traits of a good relationship. They're signs of alignment. And yet, even when all four signs are present, the recognition, the synchronicity, the disruption, the intensity, it doesn't always mean you'll ride off into the sunset together. Sometimes these connections are designed to teach, not to last. And that's okay. The point isn't to cling. It's to listen, to receive the message, to let it shape you. Because if there's one thing Jung emphasized, it's that the soul doesn't care about comfort, cares about wholeness. It will draw in exactly who and what you need to become more fully yourself. And sometimes that means heartbreak. Sometimes it means walking away from the very person who awakened you. Not because it wasn't real, but because it was too real to be contained in a conventional relationship. Some stories are meant to echo, not conclude. And that's where your insight becomes part of this story. If you've ever felt like the universe sent someone into your life for a reason, drop a comment below. Share your experience. Let's build a space where these stories can breathe. Because we learn just as much from each other as we do from ancient texts or modern theories. What makes this all so compelling is that we feel it before we understand it. The intellect catches up later. First comes the energy, the pull, the inexplicable knowing. And then, little by little, the narrative forms. We give it words, meaning, structure. But it started with a feeling. That's where all great transformations begin. And if this kind of content moves something in you, if it resonates on a level you can't quite explain, that's your signal. Subscribe not just to this channel, but to the process of waking up, to paying attention, to being alive in the most meaningful sense. Because when the universe wants to get your attention, it doesn't send a memo. It sends people, encounters, emotions, stories. And your only job is to notice, to stay curious, to follow the thread, even if you don't know where it leads. Maybe, just maybe, it's leading you home,